So this course is about uh, positive reinforcement movement training. It's aimed at overweight and laminitis horses. If you don't have a horse, Patricia, or your donkeys are not laminitis, that is totally fine. But we will also talk a little bit about management to keep them healthy and at a healthy weight. But the main thing of this course is to get your horse moving with positive reinforcement, and there's several ways to do that. Let's keep my microphone. Nearby. Okay. So today's content is introductions. We have some community rules, the topics in this 8-week program, because instead of a 2-week really intensive program, I got back from being evacuated with my family and my horses and my cats due to wildfires. So it was just too much to all condense it in 2 weeks. So then I thought, how can I make it better? How can I make it a win-win? I'll just spread it over 8 weeks. Then I have a little bit more time to address everything. So that's a win for you. So we will talk about positive reinforcement for humans and horses. Positive reinforcement is my coaching style. I love it to just focus on what we do well and what we can do more of. And for horses, it makes it a win-win, because if we can give something they want, it's easier for them to do what we want, because they get something in return that's very valuable to them. We will talk about today about the learning hierarchy, the principles of learning and motivation we will do in these 8 weeks. We will talk extensively about my positive reinforcement training system and why it's so important to have a system. How to exercise your horse with positive reinforcement, and the management of the overweight horse, including enrichment and anything you bring to the table. We're a small group, so there's lots of room to work on the things that you want to work on. It's not like a very strict program, because my intention is to help you learn what you need to learn or want to learn. So today we're going to talk about, I have a little bit of delay in my mouse button. Introductions, the community rules, which are just common sense, basically. How learning works. I will talk about my positive reinforcement training system, and then we will talk about the challenges in exercising your horse with positive reinforcement and how to overcome them. I will share some success strategies and some training ideas, and then at the end, I was just away, internet unstable. So, but everything I said is on the slide. So, and then at the end, there's time for and room for Q&A and discussion, and we can talk about our personal situation and what we can do, and what exercises we will work on. A little bit about me, for if you don't know me. I have a bachelor degree in science and animal management. I'm the founder of HippoLogic and the Clicker Training Academy. I started out as a riding instructor, and then I became a centered riding instructor, because I realized that it's just not the lack of knowledge, it's just a lack of balance that kept people running into problems in riding. And I've always trained horses for other people. So yeah, it started as a hobby, and then a paid hobby, and then my work. I helped hundreds of people over 25 years of doing this, And in 2009, I tamed and trained a wild horse in 3 weeks with positive reinforcement, which is my horse Kira that you can see in the pictures. So in 2016, she got laminitis, and then I started to focus on how can I do movement training with positive reinforcement. So that was how I started this journey, because I started because she was overweight and she was a bit chubby, but I didn't know how to build duration. I didn't know what exercises would work. So, then you stop or something else looks more interesting and you digress from that goal, because it's super hard if you get stuck to keep going. But then when she got laminitis, I had to figure it out, because I refused to go back to lunging and falling back on negative reinforcement and coercing Kira to move. So that I was really motivated to find everything I could do to help her get moving. So yeah, and then I turned it into a course. So introductions, which will be yeah, you. So who are you, where are you from, and tell us about your horse and what brought you here.
Who are you starting with?
You can start, Rachel.
Starting with me? Okay. I am Rachel and my horse is Bo. We live in Oklahoma. Lately I've been increasingly more concerned about him. He actually used to be quite spirited, to the point that we had to work really, really hard on getting some calmer moments. And so in the last year, he had colic surgery back in December, and it has just kind of gone downhill from there. I actually just got done working with him this morning. I'm just having a really hard time keeping his motivation up. He's dragging. He's just dragging. I'm having a hard time keeping him trotting for any length of time. So we need some help.
Oh, that's perfect. We will work on that, and in 8 weeks it will look totally different.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, and thank you for sharing that. And it's easy to work with, because you already have identified your biggest problem, so that makes it easy. But yes, we will absolutely talk about motivation, how to keep your horse motivated, and how to build that duration in exercising, in movement. Patricia.
Well, I'm Patricia and I live in Spain. And I used to have a horse, but now I have 2 donkeys. And one of them is only 3 years old, and she needs to be, I'm starting clicker training now. And I want her to move away from me and run around run around the cones or whatever. She needs to move away from me, basically. At the moment, she's glued. So when I go anywhere, I take a target stick and she follows that, but I can't keep running. So I want to make it so that she can separate herself from me and go on her own exercising.
Yeah, I wonder how this works for donkey, but we'll see. We'll figure it out.
It's difficult because they like to follow you.
They like to follow you, and they're completely different from horses. But yeah, so in clicker training, we just have to adjust to our learner. And yeah, donkeys are different from horses. So yeah, but there's always a solution to every problem. That's my philosophy. I have 2 minis, Fionn and Odin. They're about 5 years old. I'm not sure how old they are. And they were a little bit overweight, because I free fed them all winter, and then I kept doing that during spring, because there's like a part of me that says, like, they will self-regulate. In a way, it is true, but I do believe that Odin, the smallest of my two minis, I suspect that he's lemonitic prone. Like, I think he will have equine metabolic syndrome. He has like all the symptoms like crusty neck, and he overeats. Fionn also likes to eat, but Fionn stops sooner than Odin. So yeah, so I that's my reason for doing this program as well, to keep on it and to keep preventing Odin and Fionn, of course, from getting laminitis. So yeah, but that's minis. It is what it is. Oh, and what brought you here? Well, we talked about that. So some community rules, respect for each other. We are solution focused. We are horse centered. So it's all about the horse. The horse is really important. Like every horse has its limitations. So I really want, that's so important to me. So even if we as owners might think or want to do something, if the horse cannot do it because of his health, because he's in pain, because he doesn't understand it, that's the most important to me. So it's horse centered. We are all about learning and supporting each other, and be generous with your thoughts and ideas, and be responsible, do the work. That's it. So let's talk about how does learning find place. Like, there are different stages of learning, and once you know this, that can help you in your learning journey. So this is the hierarchy of learning. We all start at the bottom. We are unconscious incompetence. We don't know what we don't know, and we just live on. Then in the next stage, we become conscious incompetence. We figure it out, like, oh, there is something I actually don't know. Then the next stage becomes conscious competence. We know that we know things, and then we become unconscious competence. We don't realize how far we've come and what we actually know. So the learning process, the main characteristic is in the unconscious incompetence, ignorance bliss. So those people are not here because, yeah, they don't think they need to learn anything, because they are not aware of what they can do. Then the conscious incompetence phase is you feel really uncomfortable because you're aware that you don't know anything, that you have like a gap in your knowledge or your experience. And sometimes what will happen if you are in this stage is that you, for instance, fall back on negative reinforcement because you don't have positive reinforcement solutions. So the action is that you are in search for support and answers, which is a good thing. And falling back to negative reinforcement, I think it's just every human does it, because we use negative reinforcement all the time in our own culture. So yeah, it's completely normal if we think like, oh, I'm getting so angry, my horse doesn't move. I want to make him, because also you want to keep him healthy. Then the next stage is that you will feel confident in your positive reinforcement skills. Problems become challenges, and you really know how to use positive reinforcement as a communication tool in the bond with your horse. So then that stage, you're looking for new challenges. And then the unconscious competence phase is that, yeah, you're applying positive reinforcement as a second nature. You get predictable and reproducible results. and you're probably not even aware how skilled you really are. So that in that phase you are refining your skills. So, and we are all in yellow, green, dark green, and purple somewhere in our equestrian lives. So yeah, it's just yeah, if you're in the yellow phase, you don't know what you don't know. But I'm sure that I have like some things in my life with my horses that I'm in the yellow phase or in any other phase. So let's talk about how you can make your positive reinforcement training successful. You will hear me say this over and over again. Clarity is key. Clarity and giving your horse confidence. So, oh, I get a message that my internet connection is unstable. So let's talk about what are some of the symptoms of lack of clarity, because if you recognize them, then you know that this is a signal that you have to change something. So maybe you look back on your training in the past 2 or 3 months and you're realizing that you're doing the same thing over and over without getting the results you actually want or expect. Sometimes you may experience feelings of regret after training. Maybe that happens if you fall back on negative reinforcement training. When Kira got laminitis, I just wanted to get her healthy. So I did start round penning her and falling back on the Pirelli stuff that I did all the way in the beginning before she told me that she didn't like that. So yeah, I was feeling I had regret after that, and then I decided to just throw that all overboard and find a way with positive reinforcement. Or maybe you feel that there's more that you can learn or that you could do better if you know how. Or you start training behaviors but you don't complete them. And with completing behaviors, I mean that you put them on cue, or that you stop training the behaviors before they are on cue, or you create confusion in your horse because you don't really know when that behavior is completed. I cannot resist the chat. It's hard when you're scared for their well-being. Yes, it is. I feel like I'm having to feed him constantly to keep him moving, which seems counterproductive. Yes, this is so true, and this is only in the beginning. The purpose of a high rate of reinforcement is to give your horse clarity and confidence so he knows what he's supposed to do. But in the beginning, yes, you will feed him a lot. I always recommend a high rate of reinforcement. But the idea is, once your horse knows what to do, how to do it, that you fade out the clicks and the treats. I already made some notes for week 1. Like there's several things that you can do if you're worried about the amount of treats in the ratio of exercise that you're getting. Oh, we can just unmute you and digress from the from the schedule. So what you can do is, first of all, you can take out the amount of food that you're using in training from their daily diet. So then you don't add calories for movement training. And but the purpose is to teach your horse what he has to do, so he will do it for less treats. So then the aim is to let him burn calories instead of just adding calories, if that makes sense. So yes,
So
it's
with my horse, it seems like a lot of the stuff that I'm asking him to do is stuff that he's known how to do for a long time, but he's so out of shape that the treats that I'm giving him are not enough to counter the aversive he feels about the exercise at this time.
yes. So what we will do is to find out what he finds difficult, and then make it easy, and then build that duration. So maybe we have to start to do things a little bit differently, the setup. Sometimes we get into in the habit of raising our criteria too fast, or we do not raise our criteria at all.
Yeah.
So, but we will talk about that, and there's plenty of time in these 8 weeks to send in some videos so I can see what's actually happening, which will just be super helpful. Another lack of another symptom of having lack of clarity in your training is that you feel dissatisfied, frustrated, or that you lost your joy in training or riding your horse. I had all these, so I'm super familiar with all of these. Or
That's what I'm feeling.
what?
That's exactly how I was feeling this morning, all of those things. But it's just like, I feel like right now, everything about all of the exercise feels so aversive to him that literally he is like every single thing he's feeling resistant, whether it be like putting on his tack or whatever, because he knows that he's getting ready to have to exercise. And I'm just like, oh my God, all of this feels like such a drag.
Oh yeah, and then you create procrastination in training. You don't feel like going to your horse. You don't like feel like, oh, because then it becomes like aversive for you too, because you know your horse
Exactly.
doesn't like it. So then it's extra hard to keep doing it, because there is somewhere in your brain that you know that he needs his exercise because it's super important for his health, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a solution to everything. We will get there. Absolutely. In 8 weeks, this will look totally different. So what happens if we don't have clarity? Or if we are confused about the what, when, or how? Like people say, I will do anything, and I am in movement training, and I do so much.
Gone again.
But if you, oh, I'm gone again. Well, everything I say is probably on the slides for now, but it's good to know. Yeah. So if you have a lack of clarity and you say I can go anywhere, you usually end up nowhere. We are going nowhere because it's too much choice, and yeah, nothing really happens. But what happens if we are very, very clear about the what, the when, and the how? For instance, I want to go to Rome to the Colosseum instead of I want to go anywhere on vacation. I want to go to Rome to the Colosseums. Very, very specific. So now you start with the end goal in mind. Then you can figure out a way to get there. When I was living in the Netherlands, I could just go by car. Now I live in Canada, so now I have to plan a plane or a boat, but that will take so long. But anyway, you know exactly where you want to go, where you are. So it's easy to plan your journey. So that's the road to success. And then you know exactly where to end up. So picture what your desired or end goal looks like. And we will work on that in the whole course. So what is actually your goal? What are you looking for? How do you envision this? These are all questions that you can write down for yourself, like, and then we can discuss it. Like, yeah, what do you want? Like, how does it look like? is what cue are you going to teach your horse? So it's really good to think about that before you start. How effortless does it need to be, the whole movement? Like, how do you envision it? And then also, like, how long, what's the duration that you would like to for your horse to offer this behavior? And we're talking all about movement. Like, is it 1 minute or is it 5 minutes? So just by answering these questions, you get more clarity also about what your idea is and what the reality is. When I was answering these questions for myself at one point, I had a stopwatch, and 1 minute of trot was really, really, really long for Kira. And like in riding lessons where you ride a horse that walks 5-6 hours a day, like 3 minutes of canter or 5 minutes of canter is doable because they are in a really, really good condition. But if you have a stopwatch and are, when I was working with Kira, like 1 minute, that was so long. So sometimes there's like a big gap between what we have in our head, but it's totally doable, but maybe not in the first few sessions, right? So the more clear you are with what you really want and how measurable it is, the easier it is to accomplish it. And then how do you want your horse to move forward? Like energetic, athletic, happy? Because if your horse is dragging right now, it's like, okay, maybe my horse is dragging his feet. What can I do? What can I reinforce to make him more forward, more energetic? And you can teach your horse that, absolutely. And also to think about what purpose has this behavior? What's your motivation? How will it make your life and your horse's life better? Like in this course, we will really focus on at liberty movement, because if you can train your horse at liberty, your horse has the option to opt out. When he opts out, you get valuable feedback, and then you can ask yourself, like, why is he opting out? And then you can address that cause and make it again fun for your horse. But also realizing that the more is my internet again off or?
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay. So when we think about the purpose and our motivation, at liberty training takes a lot of energy at first, but it will super pay back because we don't have to run along. We will not become the bottleneck of movement training, which you so often see when people start moving their horse or do movement training, for instance, with a reverse round pen. They keep running with a moving target, but there will be a point that the horse will get in a better condition and that they can do longer duration than the trainer can, because it's really hard to run around with a moving target in a sand paddock. I know because I tried it. So the more specific we are, and I'll help you with that, the easier it is to accomplish your goal, because then you also know when you reach your goal and how to measure your progress, which will really help with your motivation. So what does it look like? Do you want to ride eventually? Do you want your horse to have like a bounce in the trot? Do you want to bike with your horse, or just hand walks, or at liberty? Like, what do you have in mind that will work for your horse? And maybe it's one of these things, maybe it's all of these things. Just think about the question, like, what do you have in your mind as your end goal? So let's start. So I work with 3 pillars in clicker training. one is the key lessons for horses, which are the 6 basic behaviors for horses. If you have pen and paper, make notes. So these are the basic behaviors for horses. For movement training, we won't need all of these 6 basic behaviors, but once your horse masters these basic behaviors, you can help. These are the building blocks to train every future behavior. So the better you are at these, the more advanced you are. So the better you are at the basic, the more advanced you are. Then we have also 6 key lessons for you as a trainer, and the better you are at those skills, the better results you get with your horse. And then we put it all in a system, so it's just easy to know where you are in the process of training behavior. So the benefits of having a system is that you always know your next step. You get total clarity about where you are, where you want to go, and if you get stuck, where you are stuck, which makes it easier to solve your struggles. You get predictable training successes, which is motivating for trainers. And by having the clarity yourself, you can give your horse clarity. And the more clarity you can give to your horse, the easier for your horse it is to learn new skills. And the better your results will be. So let's take a look at the key lessons for horses. So I talk about table manners. If some of you have struggles with one of the, oh, that is for you. It's my ringtone for my son. I'll just shut off my phone. Sorry about that. Anyway, so table manners is safe behavior around food and treats in training. Patience, that's my default behavior. Key lesson patience, you teach your horse to stand next to you relaxed, and it's also a default behavior. A default behavior is a behavior that your horse can offer anytime without a cue and still get reinforced for that behavior. So if my horse Kira didn't understand what it was that I was asking from her, when she got frustrated, she fell back to default behavior. In the beginning, the default behavior was flamen, so it was a smile, which was not the best default behavior, but it helped with communication. If I wanted her to go over to a cone and she didn't get it, and she didn't hear a click, she fall back to her default behavior. She did flamen, and I knew, okay, you don't get it. But now I teach key lesson patience, which is just that they stand square in a relaxed manner. And because it's trained behavior, I will always recognize it as behavior. Patience. Patience also includes a behavior that you can ask before you ask anything else. So you teach patience to wait for your next cue, for instance, which really helps that two-way communication. The third lesson is targeting. I'm talking about nose targeting, but targeting in general means that you teach your horse to touch a specific object with a specific body part. So the next one is targeting for their feet. And that's the mat training. You teach your horse to stand on a mat. Mats can be very beneficial because you can send, and targets too, so you can send your horse over to a mat or to a target and he knows what to do. Then head lowering is one of the basics that can come in handy at all times. If you have a tall horse and you want to halter your horse and you keep the halter in front of him, if he knows how to head lower, you can train him to become a self-haltering horse, for instance. Sometimes they need to lower their head if they, for instance, they are very tall, like Friesians going into a trailer. They just have to lower their head. But sometimes also when there's like a scary object on the ground that you want them to take a look at, you can cue them to lower their head, and then it helps them relax. And backing is also for safety, but also to make the horse a little bit more agile. We probably don't need backing. Head lowering could be a basic that could be used to get your horse on the bit at liberty without a bit, but engaging his body, for instance, that could be what it could be used for. The keys to success for trainers are completely different. It means that you know the principles of learning and motivation. I will talk about this all the time. So the principles of learning and motivation is always these questions. What is motivating your horse to do what he's doing? If he's opting out, for instance, or he's reluctant to move, what is his motivation for doing what he's doing? Is he moving away from something? Does he want to avoid something? Or did he get reinforced for doing that behavior? So when you know the cause of that specific behavior or reaction, depending on what the cause is, you can figure out a solution, because it depends on, and it's always a guess, of course, but it depends what the cause is, what your solution will be. Like, for instance, I always give the example of trailer loading. When horses don't want to go into the trailer, is that because they want to avoid the trailer because they are scared of the trailer, or they just want to stay outside the trailer because they are motivated because they want to stay with their friends? So that's the reason they won't go in there, because they want to stay here, because they are positively reinforced by their friends to stay there. So if you know how learning works, then you can be a better trainer. The second key to success is making a training plan. Start with the end in mind. What is it that you want? Why do you want it? And then how will you train it? The shaping plan is a written manual to train a behavior. A training plan is more overall. Like, training plan could be like, I want my horse to get a healthy weight. I want him to trot at liberty, but I also want him to ride him, for instance. So, and a shaping plan is more, okay, let's focus on one behavior, trot at liberty. How do we train that step by step? That's the shaping plan. Then accountability is something that we all need. Accountability can help us with our motivation. You can have internal accountability, like the urge that you really want your horse to get healthy. But sometimes we also need external accountability. Being in a group every Sunday, like if you have your homework and you want me to take a look at it, you have to send in your video, because you will know that I will take a look at it. So the accountability is, okay, I have to make my video before Wednesday, for instance. So that could be an example of external accountability, because when we do everything by ourselves, we can feel lonely and we can digress, because we can do it tomorrow, and then before we know it, we haven't trained our horses for a long time. So accountability is something that is very important, to set that up for ourselves. A training journal. I will provide you with a training journal. When you have a training journal, you can track your training. So you will can make a note where you are, and then keep track of your progress. I will talk about how to use a training journal. A training journal is very beneficial if you do it in a way that it's fun to look back. I started decades ago with a training diary, and then I wrote things in it like, oh, the training went shit and he didn't want to do it and it was so frustrating. But I didn't wrote down what I did. I didn't wrote down how I trained it. And I also didn't wrote down my successes. So it was absolutely no fun to read it back. So actually it was useless. But if you do it in a way that you will read it back and that you think like, oh, wow, a few weeks ago, I trained this. And now my horse already can do that, then it helps you with your own motivation, because motivation goes up and it will also go down. There are some days that we don't want to feel like training, that we think we don't get to our goal. That's completely normal. So I like to use training journals, but there's so many ways to track your training. You can do, for instance, pictures if you want to get your horse in a better shape physically. I also recommend taking pictures. If you have like a measuring tape, a weight tape, like use that to see if your horse is losing weight, gaining weight, or nothing happens, because that can all influence like the choices that you make for next time. And then the last one is emotions. Emotions in training, they are there, they're super important. We all know what it feels like to be frustrated, and we all know how to what it feels like if we are super happy and enthusiastic. And horses also have emotions, and I believe that they have the same emotions like we do, the core emotions. So if we can manage our own emotions, but also can manage our horses' emotions better, like if they are really in flight mode, they are not in learning mode. If they are super fearful to do something, they won't learn what you want to teach them. So yes, they will learn. If they're super afraid of the trailer and we force them in, they will learn that the trailer is a fearful thing. So yes, they do learn something, but they probably don't learn what we want to teach them. So a horse that is in fight or flight, for instance, is not in learning mode. If a horse is super frustrated, you're not in learning mode. If you're looking for your keys and you have looked everywhere, the keys can be right in front of you and you cannot see them, literally, because your brain is going everywhere. But once you're calm, you just see they were right in front of you. So emotions are super important to influence and to regulate, and also to recognize, like, is my horse in learning mode, or is he getting out of learning mode? Does he get frustrated? And what can I do about that? So in this chart, you will see how the key lessons for trainers will come back. So you start with a training plan. What is it that you want to do with your horse? Long time, short time, it doesn't really matter, but like, yeah, you always start with the end in mind. Then you list all the behaviors that are a part of it. Like, for instance, you want to turn your horse into a riding horse. Like, what does your horse need to know? He needs to learn to accept, for instance, a saddle. He needs to learn, or if you work at Liberty, let's tailor it to that. The training plan is to train your horse at Liberty to let him lose weight, for instance. List all the behaviors that are part of it. You actually want him to walk, but also trot and even canter. So you make a list of all those behaviors, so you really have like everything covered. Then the next thing is to make a decision what to train first. If you work at Liberty, starting at canter probably wouldn't work so well. So then you start with, okay, let's teach my horse, let's focus on walking and forward movement. So that's where we will start. So then you will make a shaping plan. And in order to make a shaping plan, you need the principles of learning and motivation. What motivates my horse? If you offer something that has no value to your horse, he won't be motivated, and it will be very, very hard, if not impossible, to train him to move forward. Then you have to practice. And practicing is just getting feedback from your horse. I've written like thousands of shaping plans. And the more I do it, the more I realize that the shaping plan is more about how we can divide the goal behavior into smaller steps. But it's always the horse that decides, I need this, I need that. Yesterday, I was helping somebody with at Liberty work, and she really wanted to plan it out, which was really, really great. But she knew actually all the steps. She was already experienced in clicker training, so it didn't have to explain that. So then my next step was just, let's get your horse and see what happens. And your horse will tell us what your horse needs to learn. So in one session, we could teach the horse to walk around an object. And we got feedback from the horse that the horse wanted to walk clockwise, but not counterclockwise. So we already also learned what was more aversive. Counterclockwise was so hard, so the horse turned around herself so she could go like the easy route. And that's perfectly fine, especially in the beginning. And once you know that, you can also know that, okay, maybe we have to do shorter sessions counterclockwise. Maybe we have to use higher value reinforcements, or maybe the horse needs to be checked out physically. So it's all about feedback from the horse, and all those practice sessions, it helps if we have accountability. So yeah, the purple things are always kind of in the background. So once we have trained, get feedback from our horses, we evaluate our training. How did it go? What went well? And then we pick one thing that we think, okay, I want to focus on the next thing. Like the horse that I worked with yesterday, I would say, okay, the next training, we would focus on going counterclockwise and really reinforce the horse for going counterclockwise, and see how we can make that as easy as possible. So no circles, because circles are really hard, straight lines, and yeah, make it easy for the horse. So that's an example of how to use your training journal and your evaluation. In the background, of course, always emotions. The hard emotions represent the desired emotions, the emotions that are beneficial for learning. Your horse is engaged, your horse is curious. The little lightning bolt represents the undesired behaviors, because there's no good or wrong emotions. We just have the whole scala and range of emotions. We all get mad, we all get frustrated. But if we get frustrated, we have to recognize it and then ask ourselves, how can we change that emotions? Sometimes there was a point when I was still traditionally trained, and when I got frustrated, I took it out on my horse, because after all, I had the goal. I needed to be the leader, the boss. I had to make the horse go. And when I shifted that and thought, you know what? No training has ever become better when I was frustrated or mad. So then I changed my attitude, and I thought, you know what? If I get frustrated, what if I just stop? So that became my go-to reaction. If I felt anger or frustration in training, I immediately stop all training and do some breathing exercises until I feel better, until I am in learning mode again. I feel calm, and then usually I can find a I can find a solution, instead of just going like, yes, I'm mad and we have to do it. No, there's no one who's telling you to keep going. So emotions are always in the background. We all have emotions all the time. So once we have evaluated our training of that day, our session, chances are that we need to adjust something. It's just feedback of the horse that we got. So there's probably something that we didn't think about, like maybe we need to adjust some of the training tools or whatever it is. There's usually something. So sometimes we have to go back, like, okay, we wanted to, yesterday, the owner of the horse, she wanted to work on trot. But sometimes the horse is not ready for that. We have to teach him one more step before he's ready to trot. So we had to turn her reverse round pen into a square, because that works better for the way I teach forward movement. So yeah, we had to decide to teach the horse to go around objects first, or maybe there's something in the shaping plan that we need to adjust. It's always good to think about it. And then you go round and round and round until you have your desired emotions or desired results. Are there any questions about this? Does it make sense?
Sense.
Awesome. So let's see what else is in the system. So for instance, you're training for movement. So you pick your goal, you take that out of your training plan. For instance, forward movement, trot for X amount of time or X steps. So in the beginning, let's say your goal is you have prepared your horse can walk around objects, he knows what to do, and now you're training for 5 steps trot, because we have to start somewhere. We start with 1 step, we start with transition walk trot. So we have to start somewhere. So let's say 5 steps of trot, because once you have 5 steps, it's easier to get to 6, 7, 8, 9 steps instead of like from walk to 10 steps. So we have to have our shaping plan. How are we going to do that? What works for this horse in this situation? That's super important, because there is a general thing that we can do. But the shaping plan is always like personalized for your horse and your situation. Maybe I work with cones, traffic cones. Maybe you don't have cones. You can work with something else, like a bucket or whatever. So that's all in your shaping plan. Then you have to practice. And then the question is, did I get consistent behavior? In the beginning, the answer is no, not yet. It's very important to realize not yet. So you either go back to practicing some more, or you have to adjust your shaping plan. And once you get consistent behavior, that's fabulous. The answer is yes. So then you can start building, raising your criteria. But if you get consistent behavior, if you get consistent trot, then it's time to add a cue on it, because once you have a cue, yeah, that will help with everything. So a physical cue could be like an arm signal or a hand signal or whatever you want to use. A verbal cue can be trot, in whatever language you speak to your horse. Then when we get consistent behavior, it's time to change our reinforcement schedule. In the beginning, when our horse is not consistently offering trot, we will reinforce 100% of the time. But once your horse offers trot consistently, he doesn't get a click and treat 100% of the time for 1 step or 2 steps. We go to an intermittent schedule. So sometimes they get a click for 5 steps, sometimes they don't. So that will keep him guessing a little bit, but we have to keep them guessing enough to keep his motivation high, but he doesn't need to be guessing so much that he's getting frustrated or opting out. So there's just always like, what does he need? How much reinforcement does he need? If we keep going on a 100% reinforcement schedule and click and treat for everything, every trot, every step, we become so predictable. The horse will make a decision. Okay, I know I'll get 1 cookie and I have to do this. I don't feel like doing this, so I'd rather let go of that 1 cookie opportunity, because they just weigh out the options that they have. But if they think, I know my person is asking me for this, but I'm not sure if I get that cookie, maybe I get nothing, or I get something even better. You know what? I want to find out. And then you get more enthusiastic horses, more engaged horses, and horses that want to work for you. So once we have forward movement, we have trot for X amount of time or X amount of steps, then we can train the behavior trot at liberty in a context shift. And a context shift, horses learn in a specific context. So if you have set up like a rectangle or a square, and you always ask at cone number 1, you have numbered them in your mind. At cone number 1, there's trot. Then it's time to ask him to trot at cone number 2, 3, or 4. So it's a little bit different. So in that way, the horses learn to generalize the cue, and the environment is not the cue. So yeah, for instance, if you teach your horse to trot, then another context is to learn to trot under saddle, or to trot at a different spot in the arena, or on trails, or on the road, or whatever. I struggle with being too predictable. I'm good with a high rate of reinforcement, but I find it difficult to lower my rate of reinforcement. You can do that in different ways. So you can click less often. You can also feed less. So then the amount of treats last longer, because now you can do like 20 clicks for 1 portion, or you can do 25 clicks. I can give you more tailored advice if I can see a video of what you're doing, because it's super important that your horse stays engaged when you lower your rate of reinforcement. And you can lower your rate of reinforcement when your horse exactly knows what to do and offers consistent behavior. So I think there's what we have to look at. Does your horse offer consistent behavior? And then, like, okay, you can ask, like, for instance, yeah, why not just jump into that? What is some behavior that your horse offers consistently at this point?
There he prefers anything standstill because I really think that just the exercise is just that aversive to him right now. He's so out of shape. Consistent things that he really enjoys doing is moving on the forehand. He really, really likes side passing. Anything. He loves to do what I call his tricks. And sometimes he'll offer those behaviors when I haven't asked for him, just because he likes to do them.
So what is one behavior that you struggle with being too predictable?
Okay. So I feel like I always get stuck somewhere. So,
We all do.
um,
So yes, that's normal. You're a normal person. Check.
so like, mat training, for instance, like we were talking about earlier, we've done mat training. My duration on his mat training isn't good. He knows the mat, he knows that he's supposed to stay there, but the duration just isn't there. And we've been doing clicker training for years now, so it's just simply the fact that I suck at creating that I'm really good, like, to a certain extent, raising criteria, and then I hit this spot where, like, I just get stuck and I never move past it.
Can you identify your stuckness? Is it, for instance, I'll give you an example. I had trained like 25 behaviors and I didn't realize I was stuck. I was just like, okay, next behavior, next. So my horse knew 25 behaviors. But what I
Mhm.
didn't realize, and I only realized working with a coach, was I hadn't put them on cue. So what happened was my horse was guessing all the time because I couldn't give him a cue for Spanish walk, for trot. Well, walk, trot, canter was more or less on cue, but mat training wasn't on cue. Whenever he saw the mat, he just guessed, like, do I have to get there or not? Like, once I recognized, oh, I don't know how to put behavior on cue, then the next issue came up, duration. I had no idea how to build duration. So once I knew how to build duration, the next thing came up. So when I realized where I got kind of stuck, or what my pitfall was, it was easier to find a solution, work on that, and then move on to the next.
I think that there's actually two reasons for me, because I have thought this through about why this is difficult. I think, first of all, I think that giving rewards is not just rewarding for them, it's rewarding for me. And it's
Yes.
very difficult for me to to take a step back and not give them those rewards. I really think it's almost an aversive for me not to give them that reward in that moment. And then the second thing is, there's constantly this feeling of, like, fine line between letting them figure it out but waiting too long and missing your opportunity. And I think that it creates this little bit of, like, anxiety in me, going like I have a mare that I took from feral last year, and I have been trying to um get her to stand facing forward. My I'm really, really struggling with, I've just been giving her treats like nonstop for stand facing forward, but it's time for me to lower that ROR now. And so I literally have to sit there and talk to myself the whole time and go, don't do it, Rachel. Don't do it. Let her figure it out. And, like, but watching her try to figure it out and not knowing or not I am waiting too long or getting my timing right stresses me out.
Got you. Yes. Well, it is always trial and error because no horse is the same. No situation is the same. Whatever you train today, can be different tomorrow because tomorrow it's after dinner. Today it was before dinner time, or another horse is freaking out next to the paddock and influences the behavior or whatever. So it's always the feedback in your training. So one thing that really helps is tracking your training by making a video, by making it measurable, and also have a system, a tactic. So for raising your criteria, for instance, and lowering your rate of reinforcement, for instance, for standing still, is to start at your baseline. We will talk about that at the end of this training too. Like, start where your horse is at. What is the baseline? How long can your mare stand still, face forward on a mat? Maybe it's half a second. So then if you would video yourself, you could say, okay, my rate of reinforcement is 1 second. And then I click treat, click treat, click treat. So how can I make it 2 seconds? Because if you don't know what you're measuring, or you want to extend the duration between your clicks, then it's super difficult, because is 2 seconds enough? Or 3
Mm-hmm.
seconds? Or 5 seconds? But if you know, okay, maybe your rate of reinforcement is every 3 seconds. Oh, maybe I can make it 4
So
seconds.
what if, okay, so like I've seen people, like if you're waiting and you're doing your seconds and the horse messes up, I've seen people, like I was watching a video by Shauna Karash or whatever her name is. And so I've seen people, like, when their horse messes up, they just sit and wait until the horse figures it out and does it correctly again. And then they give the click and treat. Or sometimes if they won't figure it out, they'll set them back up and give the click and treat. But then that messes up your, like, how many seconds you're going in between. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so the thing is, like, it's very individual. Every horse, every person, every situation is different. So depending on what your horse already knows and what he is used to, what rate of reinforcement, that two-way communication of the trainer helps. But for in your case, if you tell me that you find it difficult to lower your rate of reinforcement, I will go, for instance, because you want to give your horse clarity and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to give your horse confidence, the click is coming. I would suggest, like, now your rate of reinforcement is 1 second. So click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, click, treat. I would say, make it 2, make it 1, make it 2, make it 2, make it 1, make it 2, make it 3, make it 1. So you build that confidence. It's like click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, click, treat,
Mm-hmm.
click, treat, click, treat. Like, and you build that so that your horse will get the confidence. Sometimes the clicks come really fast, so I better stay here. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And sometimes you have to really stretch from starting from 1 second to 2 seconds. And when you are waiting, a second feels long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
It's But once you get used to that, and once you get used to, maybe you're just looking at your watch, or you have a stopwatch on your phone, and you're just like, okay, 2 seconds, oh, click. But sometimes, yes, horses can get frustrated because they don't know what to do. So sometimes the answer, depending on the training history with the horse, you can just wait until they start to offer that desired behavior again, or you set them up from the beginning. But it depends a little bit, and it's very dependable also of the timing of the trainer. And I think I've seen Shauna Koresh train, and I think she has a really good eye for timing. So that makes it that she can get away with waiting longer, and then because she already made a super educated guess that the horse will offer that behavior again. But sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes the horse gets frustrated, and sometimes the horse opts out, and then we have to get them back,
Yeah.
lower the criteria, raise the rate of reinforcement, or lower the criteria, or
Yep.
both, until we have the horse back on track, engaged and interested, and then we can start
Yep.
from there. But
And
it's
that right there, I think, is what stresses me out. That moment, like, waiting a little bit longer, but not so long that I end up doing what you just described and having to go back from the start.
Yeah, and if you have a shaping plan, if you know, okay, I go from 1 second to 2 seconds, back to 1, back to 1, back to 2, give my horse confidence, back to 1, back to 1, back to 2, 3, back to 2, 3, 4 seconds, back to 1, you know, that the horse, before he gets frustrated, where's the treat? Where's the treat? Oh, there's already a click. So that they learn to wait. And I can tell you from experience, once you know how to do that, it gets easier in every behavior. And
Yeah.
also for your horse, because there is a point where your horse knows, okay, when I don't hear a click, and that's like in the example, what's probably happening in that example that you gave with Shona Koresh. If the horse knows I don't get a click, I have to come up with another solution. If you make that clear to your horse, then he doesn't get frustrated, but he keeps looking until he has the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And once you know that your horse is looking for the right answer and is not frustrated, it will become easier for you to do this. And then you get in an upward spiral. We can work on that, no problem. So once you get consistent behavior, you can build on duration. Walk, trot, canter. Once your horse can do all this, then we can build behaviors in a chain of behaviors. We can have a behavior sequence. So we do we start with walk for X amount of steps or distance or whatever your criteria is, and then trot, and then walk, and then click and treat. So then you have a sequence. So you can also build that up. So that is how we build more movement for less clicks and treats. Because if we do this consistently, especially in the beginning, we create confidence in the horse, because the horse knows, okay, 10 steps of walk, 10 steps of trot, 10 steps of walk, I'll get my treat. So you give him enough clarity. But once you get too predictable and he thinks, I know I get one cookie for all this, let's not do it. That's why we have an intermittent schedule. And what decision we make depends on how good we can read the emotions of our horse. So once you get consistent behaviors, we also just and the order of how we do this difference depending on the situation, but it's the purpose to fading out our tools, our clicks, because the horse knows what to do, our targets, for instance. And this is where a lot of people get stuck, and you can see that in movement training at Liberty, the horse depends on a moving target, and then it's super hard once the horse has decided, oh, when my trainer runs, I run, and when my trainer doesn't run, I don't have to run, because that is my cue. So we have to fade out the tools. We also have to realize what is the cue that the horse picked, because in the beginning, and we can take advantage of that, the horse picks an environmental cue. Oh, we're now in the arena, which means this behavior, that behavior, that behavior. And we can take advantage of that and help them learn in a specific context. But that's why we also have to shift the context and generalize that behavior. So what are some success strategies and to overcome challenges? Get clarity. What exactly is the problem? If we know what the problem is, we can find the cause. Why does it happen? If your horse finds movement aversive, why does he find it aversive? Is he overweight? Is he in pain? Or are we asking something really hard? For instance, if we work on a circle, usually that's really way harder than asking your horse to move on a straight line. And then we can solve the cause of your challenge. Maybe it's a rate of reinforcement, or maybe it's the surface. Maybe the sand in the arena is very deep and it's very hard. So maybe we can find another place to exercise our horses. Or so the more we know about the situation, the more educated our guesses can be about what is the cause, and then we can find a solution for that. So let's talk about some example of common challenges. Just gonna turn the, because it's super hot now. Common challenge in at Liberty movement training. You do more than your horse and you don't know how to turn that around. It's hard to get the horse to offer movement in the first place. The horse stops moving before you do, and you do more than your horse. That's when you see that people keep running and the horse is like, oh, I trot along, oh, distracted, and the trainer keeps running. It's hard to build duration in movement. You run out of ideas to get your horse moving, because especially if he's laminitic, not every movement is suitable. For instance, if they have laminitis or recovering from laminitis, I wouldn't recommend riding the horse. So what other options are there? Horse gets frustrated and loses interest in training. Many reasons for that, also many solutions for that. We talk about that. Sometimes people struggle with the pressure of their environment. Like I struggled when my vet told me, you have to start exercising her. She has to lose weight as soon as possible. So I really felt pressured to lunge her because he was talking about that. And I didn't lunge Kira because I wasn't doing those traditional things anymore because she disliked that. So I did that the first 2 days and she was really angry with me. And I was like, okay, let's step back. What do we both want? Oh, the vet wants the same thing. Wants a healthy horse. He wants to help me. Okay. So, and then I realized it really didn't matter to him how I would do it. He just wanted to help. So, but sometimes also barn managers or friends keep pressuring us just by questions, and we feel it as pressure, like, when are you going to ride your horse? Why are you not riding? You have to exercise your horse more, and so on. So that can be one of the challenges that we can struggle with. I had in the last course that the challenge was that the horse's job was to be calm and move slowly. It was a therapy horse. So whenever that horse was in the arena, he was just expected to be calm. It was like a gypsy horse. So yeah, they're already relaxed. So, but that's how they became overweight. So we had to figure out how to teach the horse that there's a difference being in the arena for your work as a therapy horse and being very calm, moving slowly all the time, and getting your exercise and your movement training. So what we did was really cool. We figured out a way to make that distinction very clearly. So we came up together with the idea of giving the horse a neck rope. If they would go, the trainer would put a neck rope, just a colored neck rope, nothing else, on the neck of the horse if they would go to the arena for movement training and for clicker training, because in their work, their therapy horses, there was no clicker training. So within a few sessions, they really started to anticipate. They even started to move faster towards the arena. Yes, there was movement training. Yes, they had to do movement while they were overweight and it was challenging for them. But they also realized, oh, neck rope means movement and clicker training. So they started to really change their emotions. Oh, there's no neck rope. We have to go to work. Okay, we'll be slowly. So sometimes that was like a challenge with therapy horses, and that's how we solved it. So there's other challenges. So let's see, what is the problem? Usually people have no shaping plan, so you don't know what to do, when
Lost
to
you
do
again.
it. Okay, because you do more than your horse does. So what could be one of the problems? We don't have a shaping plan. We are lumping. So we just skip steps. Our expectations are too high. We are running and the horse is like, nope, that's too much. Frustration kicks in with us or the horse, or you have taught your horse to follow you or a target. So that's the struggle where we end up doing more exercises than the horse does. So solutions are making a shaping plan and include in that shaping plan how to fade out your target. Make sure that you are not the cue for moving. Start where your horse is at. Maybe your horse is not ready for a trot yet or for longer periods of time. When you do everything as positive reinforcement, your horse will offer more. If you do it right, your horse will tell you when he's ready to do more. You can take a look at your reinforcers. Is it high value enough? Is it interesting enough? Some horses really are fine by doing the same food reinforcers over and over again. Some horses love it when you have like sprinkled in some novelty, like maybe sunflower seeds or something else that your horse says, oh, this tastes a little different. This is nice. So there's all kinds of ways to look at your reinforcers. You can also reinforce behavior with behavior. For instance, improve your setup so you don't have to move more than your horse does, and adjust your expectations. Usually it's that you have to start clicking for movement, any movement, so your horse starts to understand that it is about offering behavior and not following a target. So the most common struggle I see with movement training and at liberty training is the trainer starts to move first. So that becomes the context. That becomes the environmental cue. Oh, if my trainer is walking, I walk. Because most horses have learned to follow a person. So if you can change that by starting to click and treat for if your horse offers movement first and consistently click and treat for your horse moving when you are still standing, that is the start of teaching your horse to go at liberty and not following you. But I think especially for Kika, that would be challenging. But I bet that if you be consistent at it, that she will figure out, oh, I have to move first. And it starts as little, this is a shaping plan, weight shift. Okay, Kika started to move, weight shift. Reinforce that, because without that weight shift forward, you won't get a step forward. And horses and donkeys love to stand still, I believe.
Yeah, and the thing is, if she moves when I move at the moment, so even if I think about moving, she'll move. But if I don't move, she doesn't move either.
Yeah, because
So
if you think about moving, your body, your muscles will react to movement. And like when I say movement, I do it very exaggerated, but you think movement and your body will micro move, and that's her cue.
That's why I'm going to use a longer target stick, I think, so that I can offer that to her to move towards while I'm still standing still, but she's actually moving in front of me. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? To start with, maybe, do you think?
I
to
would,
get it.
I would, I think because I know the reinforcement history and I know Kika and you, I think that it would be hard to fade out a moving target. And that's a challenge for everybody, but I think for Kika, who already is super into I only move when you move, to fade it out, because then you kind of place to change the problem from she only moves when I move to she only moves when the target moves. So
Then
what
if
I
she,
would do is to skip that challenge and send her to a stationary target.
yes, we do that on the mat. She goes and she touches a cone, and
Exactly.
I've sent her to cones, and she does that as long as but I have to be next to her.
Yeah, so
So
then once she knows to go to a cone or a mat, then you can say, okay, I stand here and I wait until you move to the cone. And maybe in the beginning you need to, with her in this situation, you can put the cone between you and her. So she's still moving to you. And then like you slowly move to the side until you're ready. I have a video at the end of this presentation, how I taught Fionn to go around an object. And I did that with a hand movement, so it worked like a target. So that will give you maybe an idea how it could work for Kika too. And there's like literally, I've used already 50 approaches to train this. So every time I help people, I come up with more solutions. So there will be, so it really depends, but like, because I know Kika is so keen on watching you to move, if you use it with a moving target, a combination of a stationary target and a moving target will work as if you fade out that moving target as soon as possible, so that the stationary target will become the cue.
yeah,
At the end, I have a video where I show you what happens, how I taught Fionn to do that. Fionn didn't want to move at all. He was just wanted to stay with me because he was very like, you have the treats, so I need to be near you. So you can see that I have a really high rate of reinforcement, but it was just for a few sessions. So the problem is, get your horse to offer movement. You don't know where to start. Your expectations are too high. Frustration kicks in, because this is it. We have to be. The thing is that where we start is that, okay, the horse or the donkey only move when we move. So we have to teach our learner to move by himself. And that's if our expectations are too high and we think, okay, they need to move 5 steps away from us, then we get frustrated because the horse or the donkey will never offer that. We have to make it smaller, shaping plan, and click and reinforce, weight shift forward, for instance. When we become the cue, the horse follows but isn't taught to offer movement. The target stick becomes the cue. Without a moving target, the horse doesn't offer movement. So in my program, I found the solution is really to teach your horse to offer movement, make a decision, come up with a solution, and highly reinforce that. Some horses or animals that are traditionally trained, or maybe it's species in the species, if they, for instance, are traditionally trained, often all initiative is punished. So some horses, like Fionn, who was a mini horse, I don't expect him to have much training, but he's manhandled a lot, which means that if he had an idea, it systematically just shut down. So he had a really hard time, also the way of his character is, to offer movement, because he was just like, I just wait and follow. I wait and follow. That's the safest option. So I really had to help him overcome that fear of punishment or repercussions and really teach him to offer initiative. So, okay, I was maybe doing movement training, but he offered something else, click treat. Like, I just took everything just to get him on that idea. When I offer all kinds of things, I get reinforced instead of punished. So we have to start where our horse is at. Find where your horse does move and when he does move, and reinforce that moment. So if there would be like a stationary cone, or you taught him to follow a treat that you throw on the ground. Oh, movement. Oh, exactly. Reinforce that moment. So sometimes we have to take the environmental cues, or we have to set it up to our liking. Find things that interest your horse. Targets. Maybe some horses are a lot of horses like to move more forward when they are on trails or when they walk with other horses because they don't want to stay behind. So we can all use this information to our advantage. So if you have a really reluctant horse, but you find somebody who also have a horse that is willing to walk with you just on the road or whatever, and that helps, use it. Look at your reinforcers. Are they actually reinforcers? Are they reinforcing? Do you get more behavior? Because if, like yesterday when I was working with that horse, a full-size horse, and the owner offered like really generous handfuls of treats. So I clicked twice, and I was just in the habit of training mini horses, so I had like teeny tiny bits of pellets on my hand, and the horse was like, no. So after 3 times, I did realize my mistake immediately, but my muscle memory is like, only take a little bit. So, but the horse already was learning, like after 3 clicks, she didn't even reach for my hand. She was like, nope, there's nothing that you can entice me with. So then I started using the owner's treats, but she was already in that mindset of like, Sandra has nothing. No, she's not interested. So I didn't get more behavior, but we were with 4 trainers, so we did manage to get more behaviors with the other 3 trainers, which was really interesting and was a fun experience. But just because my muscle memory in the past 2 years training minis, doing like little bits, because they're highly reinforcing for my horses, so I can get away with that. But for this horse, so yeah, look at your reinforcers. Are they actually reinforcing? Do you get more behavior? Does your horse offer more, is interested, engaged? Because if not, you are at that equilibrium, like nothing happens. The horse does this, expect this. Meh, 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 meh. And then you get stuck. Sometimes you have to offer more clarity. So by using a bridge signal, it can be a handheld clicker, can be a tongue click, can be a word, whatever you like, can help offer more clarity, especially if you're working on weight shifts. Then if you have a bridge signal, you can really say, this is what I want to have more of, and then be generous with your appetitives. So. And stop before your horse does. So in the beginning, if you have a horse that you know he will stop, get to your baseline, maybe you have a video of that, or you know, like, oh, usually when we get to that corner, or she does 10 steps or 10 meters or whatever your way of measurement is. Click while your horse is still offering that specific movement that you want to train and have more of. So if you know, okay, my horse always stops after 3 steps of trot, then click at 2.5. Do that consistently, but once you get 2.5 steps, also at the right time raise your criteria. So if your horse knows, okay, 2.5 steps, I'll stop because now there's a treat, but they don't get a click and a treat, that they offer more movement because they think, okay, I have to offer more. So that offering more is also that two-way communication that you can build in while training all the other behaviors, that your horse gets used to that idea of offering movement and offering behavior. So in the beginning, when your horse struggles with offering behavior, sometimes we lump and we think, oh, finally trot, let's wait until they are like get around the arena 3 times before I click. But if you wait too long and your horse stops, then you're too late. But we just take it as feedback, make a mental note, and stop before your horse does. Let your horse offer movement by clicking for instance, going towards a cone and then feed at the cone. So once your horse knows how to go to a cone, to go around a cone, that's what I teach, then you can already click before they reach the cone and then feed at the cone. So you reinforce forward movement and you reinforce being at the cone, which then will most likely lead to, I want to be at the cone, so let's move toward the cone. And that's how you can create faster. The horse stops before you do. What's the problem? The horse tunes out because of training, or something else is more interesting. For instance, grass. Like, okay, I have a few videos where I'm working at Liberty with Kira, and Kira's like, hey, blackberry leaves, I like that. So that was a problem. My expectations were too high, or your rate of reinforcement is too low, and frustration kicks in. So what can we do about that? Again, start where a horse is at. Find where your horse does move. When does he do that? Can we reinforce that moment? Traditionally trained horses, it's different with clicker trained horses because they love to be at their trainers. Traditionally trained horses usually move faster towards the exit of the arena. Again, that's the context. So if you want to create more or faster forward movement, take into account, okay, that's the part where he moves a little bit faster, and I will take that and reinforce that. The same way is like when they traditionally trained horses, again, this often doesn't apply to clicker trained horses. But if you have a traditionally trained horse, they usually move slower when they have to move away from the exit from the arena. So if you have a really fast horse, you can use that to slow him down. And then reinforce that moment. Again, look at your reinforcers. Are they actually reinforcing? I had one day, I was teaching, I was testing this theory, like, are my reinforcers actually still reinforcing, or is it just like, do we have reached the status quo? I cue something, Kira does it, I click, she gets treat, which was a hay cube, and then we go to the next IQ, and then she got reinforced, and she just did it. So I showed her what I had, a hay cube, and I asked her to back up, and she was like, okay, 1 step. Bit reluctant. She got a hay cube. And then I was like, she's actually not offering more behavior, but I had sunflower seeds in my pocket too. So I showed her the sunflower seeds. I fed her some sunflower seeds. I asked her to back up. And she backed up and she didn't stop. She went all across the arena. And I would never ask my horse to back up like more than a few steps. I was so surprised. Of course, she got a handful of sunflower seeds. And that was also jackpot end of this. But that was so interesting. I showed her that I had like something more interested. And whoop, the amount of behavior just went through the roof. So if the horse opts out, usually we can also solve that by offering more clarity, by a bridge signal, be generous with appetitives, stop before your horse does. Sometimes it helps to offer more predictable training. For some horses, if the horse stops before we want them to stop, it's because we are not offering enough novelty. So it all depends. When we struggle with duration in movement. What is the problem? The horse stops before we can bridge or give an appetitive. Here it's really crucial that we track our training. Is he really offering less or the same amount of duration? So we can count the steps in seconds before we go to minutes, or we can measure the distance, for instance, from cone to cone. We can measure the steps, that we count the steps, because sometimes we just raise the criteria in our head and the horse is like, but I always do 10 steps. What's going on here? Again, look at the reinforcers, offer more clarity, stop before your horse stops, more predictability or more novelty. So as you can see, finally we get to where we can predict what solutions will probably work, because it's only a few things that are most solutions. You run out of the ideas to get your horse moving because the horse seems bored, or the trainer is bored, or you can ask yourself, is it really me, or is it my horse that needs novelty? Sometimes it's just in our own heads, or the horse won't move at all. So again, track your training journal, measure your actual results. Predictability can be your friend. We can change the appetitives, the environment, the setup, and still do the same exercises. I don't believe that horses get bored that easily in positive reinforcement, because they will do a lot for food. What can happen is that we become too predictable and they don't get bored, but they just decide like, yeah, it's just not worth it anymore. So that's a little bit different than boredom. Think out of the box. Think of new ideas how to get your horse moving by changing your setup or your environment, and surround yourself with other clicker trainers, and look at also at training of other species, and realize that most of us are working in a negative reinforcement setup. If we think like, my horse doesn't want to move and I have this round pen, well, the round pen is designed for negative reinforcement training. So then we have to step out of that idea and think of like, especially if movement is so important to shift the metabolism of the horse, maybe we can just start with hand walking a horse and then use positive reinforcement. And also take a good look at your training videos. What are you reinforcing? Sometimes people are not reinforcing what they think they are reinforcing. So it's all about how the horse perceives it. If we think, oh, we are reinforcing trot, but the horse is actually slowing down, and we do that like a few times in a row, then we are actually reinforcing slowing down, for instance. The horse gets frustrated and opts out. Lots of things that can happen. So we have to ask ourselves, when does that happen? What distracts him? It's really good to pay attention to that. Or the horse simply doesn't understand what is expected and just gives up finding the right answer. Especially horses that are new to clicker training and they are not used to offering behaviors and taking initiative in new behaviors. They opt out, or the trainer gets too predictable and the horse just makes a deliberate decision. Again, it's all a little bit of the same solutions: more clarity, adjust your shaping plan, sometimes helping to increase your rate of reinforcement or change the imperatives or the training setup. Sometimes it's also we get into a habit from we do this first and then that first and then that first. For instance, we take our horses to the grooming place first and then we go to the arena and then they get their dinner. And sometimes just changing that sequence can already help, whatever sequence that you are doing. Sometimes you need to limit the distractions. If somebody else is riding around you, that can be distracted. Or use your horse magnet, your target stake, to give your horse an opportunity to check it out and come back and move forward by going to the basics. The better you master the basics, the more advanced you are. And then see if you can increase that novelty aspect in training, because brains, like from horses but also from humans, love two things: predictability and novelty. If there's too much novelty, it gets scary and unpredictable, and they don't know what to do or what to expect. If we create too much predictability, we can get boring. And then I think this is the last one. If we struggle with pressure of the environment, we can feel rushed. Like, when are you starting to ride your horse? Or is this all you do? You had like a 5-minute session, or they can make you feel inadequate or you're frustrated because your results are not as clear as you could have in traditional training. Mind you, when we use negative reinforcement, we can create trot instantly. Within 2 minutes, you can get any horse to trot or even canter. If he likes it or not, we have that whip, we have that training stick, we will make him do it. In positive reinforcement, we just have to start so much smaller, and sometimes, especially if we are in an environment with traditional horse trainers or horse people, we can feel that it goes so slow, but it's like growing bamboo. I think some species of bamboo are a seed for years, and then suddenly they grow, and then they can grow like with 30 centimeters a day, some species. But first it looks like nothing happens. And this can be like similar in positive reinforcement. We reinforce a forward movement, a weight shift. From the outside, people who have not the observational skills that we have, it can look like as if you're doing nothing, if you're accomplishing nothing. And if they also tell you that, then we can get frustrated. We can receive well-meant advice from friends or bar managers, but if they don't have positive reinforcement experience, it can just sound silly and feel pressured. Like, when are you going to trot Kira? Well, she's not ready yet because we're working on walk, but it had no use to explain that because I knew that they wouldn't understand what I was doing at all. or you feel pressured from professionals like your vet, your farrier, or anybody else. So what will help is changing your own mindset. Realizing that in positive reinforcement, the start of training and behavior almost never looks like the end result already, unless you capture a behavior your horse runs and you can click and treat. And you capture that movement and your horse or your donkey thinks, ooh, that's what she wants to see more of. Let's try that again. In positive reinforcement, the horse needs to offer the behavior first in order for us to reinforce it. So that is the part that takes the longest, to train our horses to think about what we want and then make that decision to do it. In negative reinforcement, the horse doesn't have to think about anything at all. They just have to react to the pressure or the aversive that the trainer is offering. But if you track your training, you will know that you will get results. The more you realize that you are getting results, even though they don't look like the traditional results at first, if you know you're getting results, that will motivate you. And focus on the common goals with your professional. For instance, like what I said, the vet and I had the same goal. We wanted to keep Kira, or get Kira healthy and keep her at a healthy weight, instead of focusing on the way of training. I didn't tell my vet I was positive reinforcing Kira to move, because why go into that discussion if you already have the feeling that that person won't understand at all? So skip that discussion and focus on the common goals. You both want to get your horse healthy. So let's talk about success strategies for movement. Start with the end in mind. Have a clear goal. Start where your horse is at. No matter how small that is, I will help you move forward. Because if you build from there, that's the only way, in my opinion. Start where your horse is at. Keep yourself accountable. Come in the Facebook group, plan your training sessions. That's maybe a new thing for you, but if you can say, okay, next Sunday we'll meet again. My goal is to have, for what is my schedule, I can do 3 training sessions, for instance. And even if those 3 training sessions are only 5 minutes, if you do that consistently, you will book results. So this is how you can keep yourself accountable. Track your training. I will provide you with a training journal. Today you will get access to the course material, to the recording of this session. I will provide you with a training journal, and I will explain how you can make a baseline video. Just make a video of what you're doing right now of movement and how that goes, because then each week we can just move you forward in moving your horse or your donkey forward, so you have something to measure it against, because it's so enticing to think, I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet. And that can be really frustrating and demotivating. Well, if you can think like, okay, for instance, for me, like Fionn likes to trot clockwise. He loves that. He's totally fine with that. But counterclockwise, not so much. So I can think like, okay, he doesn't want to do counterclockwise trot. But if I look back on my training videos, I know in the beginning he didn't want to do anything. So then I can measure my own success compare it with my own starting point, which is way more fair. Celebrate your successes. I'm all about celebrating successes, because the more you celebrate your successes, the higher your motivation is. So let's talk about movement options. Do you need a break already? Where are we time-wise? So you can move with your horse. You can walk together. You can use following a target, or you can play chase the tiger. Chase the tiger is where you have like a plastic bag on a stick, on a rope, on a stick, and horses love to follow that. So that is one way how you can start with movement options. You can also choose not to move with your horse, but let your horse do the work. So you can send your horse around a reverse round pen, that's an option, or sending your horse from target to target. So the pros are that you can work in square or rectangle and it's an easy setup and takedown. Or you can offer your horse passive exercise. Trainers are not involved. For instance, changing in the management, in the setup, you put your water on the other side as far as possible from the hay, for instance, because I don't know about donkeys, but horses usually want to have a drink after eating. So in that way, or you can set up a track system. And enrichment, for instance, slow feeders that encourage movement, toys, or friends that move them around. So again, start with the end in mind and start where your horse is at. My pro tip for today is ask questions. Think about this. What is your starting point? I would love to for you to make a note of that for your homework. Where is your horse? What's his baseline? Like, what cues does he already know? Do you have some duration in movement already? Like maybe he offers walk only or more. So how do you do movement training and what works for your horse at this moment and what would you like to accomplish? So this is your starting point. This is all in your homework as well. Moving with your horse, you can start in the arena. I just want to know if there's anyone that has like a recovering laminitis horse at this point. Otherwise, I can go through this pretty quickly.
No.
No? Okay. Okay, I'll just go through this quickly. More poles, use a moving target, building muscle within handwork, or let your horse move more than you do. That's my favorite. You could do a reverse round pen. Not too often, like circles are really hard. I like to send my horse around cones and set up a square. I have a video for you. Or you can send your horse from mat to mat. I do have found that if you use a cone and teach your horse to go around an object as a new behavior rather than from mat to mat, that will help you with gaits like trot, because otherwise you go, your horse goes from mat, stops, mat, stops, mat, stops, and then you have to work later on getting duration. You can also do riding. You can also send your horse over poles, or you can send your horse from a trainer to an assistant and back. That's called from A's to B's. So we will work in this course on the at liberty rectangle or square, because I believe that circles are really hard. If horses are already reluctant to move, a circle is not the easiest for your horse. So how can you make it easy? To use straight lines, and a rectangle has 4 straight lines. Yes, there are some bends in a rectangle or when you work with a square, but it also gives the horse a lot of clarity. Yesterday we worked from a horse that was used to a reverse round pen, but when we turned that into a square and we've consistently reinforced more at the corners, it gave the horse clarity, because the circle, that's the same everywhere on the circle, is the same thing. But when the horse can learn to anticipate, oh, the corners are important, and then you can reinforce the corners more, that will entice forward movement, because the horse thinks, oh, the corner, that's cool, let's go around that object. And then they will anticipate, and that's one way to really create forward movement quicker. If your horse has laminitis or is recovering, we can talk about management changes that will support their health. We will absolutely work on lots of clicker training. Here's a video of Fionn where he was like a few weeks ago. He's ready to trot. I don't think you can hear the sound of the video, but I will put the video in the course content so you can watch that video. So this is one of the goals of this course. So Fionn offers trot consistently. And as you can see, he goes around like 6 cones before he gets 1 click. So, and then you can raise the criteria slowly. He's used at a bigger square than this, so that's why I put that cone a meter away. I reinforce for changing directions. And he already had like 1 step of canter. But he canters in the wrong lead, which is feedback for me to get a body worker to take a look at it. But for him, like going counterclockwise is really difficult for him. Clockwise. So I don't have to run along, I just have to cue. I cue with my hand, that means go around that object. And it's very interesting, because once I can do that, I can send them around other objects, because they know the cue, go around an object. So this is how I started. So here's a short video of how I started. Fionn didn't want to offer behavior, he didn't want to leave me. So I had a really high rate of reinforcement. That's click number 1, click number 2, click, click, because he wanted to go to the other side, click, click, click. And I feed for position around that trash can. And he already wants to come to me, so that was easy. So this is difficult for him, and I feed for position a little bit more forward. And here I'm trying to go back so that he has to move forward by himself. I was a little bit too eager. So for bigger horses, I would recommend a little bit of a different setup, so they don't have to make those turns so small. Here I'm feeding for position, go around that thing. And now he's already anticipating on coming towards me. So then I have to click less and I can get more. So here I'm lumping. I'm like, go by yourself. Nope. I should have clicked here just to give him confidence. So that was a trainer mistake, and that you get feedback from your horse. And I'm keep going, because he was still eager to work. But that was so good. End of session.
He's wonderful.
So that's 24 clicks in exactly 2.5 minutes. So that's a really high rate of reinforcement. But because I made that mistake, I realized, okay, I'm starting to lump because I'm getting too enthusiastic. I decided to stop there, because then we were on track. He was going around that trash can. I'm like, okay, this is just perfect to stop. And yeah, that's how I built that up, from going around one cone to going around multiple cones, and then first one and then two. And then when I added a third one, I realized that you can go from 2 to 4. That wasn't, in my situation, not a big challenge for my horses. So I think this is maybe a setup what you can use for Kika. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a very good idea. Perfect. Just with the one cone to start with.
Yeah, and then if they have like difficulty to make a sharp turn, I would put 2 cones next to each other, so that they don't make that bend so sharp. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to start with that. That's a perfect idea.
Yeah, and so what I did is I do that with my hand target.
Yeah.
I do this, but you can use a hand target. And I did that on purpose, because I already, because I trained multiple horses, I can do the same hand gesture, arm gesture, from a distance. But we can also start with a target stick and then make the stick a little bit shorter every time, as soon as possible, so that you can keep that arm movement, like that you point to there, and so on.
Yeah.
So I think you have to figure out, Patricia, what would work for Kika and for you.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Because at the moment we're doing a sort of slalom round but I'm trying to get her to go round to, like, for instance, the outside, and she's going inside, and then I go outside, and then she goes round, and we go sort of.
That's one of the setups that I have used as well, like a row of little buckets. I had 4 buckets, and then asked Kira to go in or come here, clicked for that, and then go outside. So then she has to go. I walked along the slalom in a straight line, so she had to go around, and then on the same side, around the same side. But then I realized it was easier to set up just a line of cones and just click for keeping the cones in between ourselves, instead of a slalom, because then I had to basically train 2 behaviors: come on this side, go to that side. But if you have like a slalom, but you walk a straight line and you ask your animal to walk a straight line, and click every time that cone is exactly between the 2 of you, then you can already build in that go around an object behavior.
Right.
And what is helpful is if you use an object that they cannot run over. I started with Kira, but Kira was already clicker trained for a decade. So I only had like super tiny buckets for minerals. So I didn't have cones. So if the object is a little bit taller and because sometimes Kira just stepped literally over the bucket, you could just simply prevent that by taking a taller object, or even like yesterday we used standards from jumps, because then they have to choose this side or that side. So that makes like the option going over it takes that out of the equation.
Yeah, that's good. I can pile some cones on top of each other, so it makes it something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or take a little stool and put the cone on top of that and then fade out that stool or something like that, so that it's really clear, like that side, this side, that side gets reinforced, this side, no.
Yeah, yeah. Great.
Any questions?
Oh, we've covered so much.
Yeah, a lot. So Rachel, what's your setup right now?
We don't have an arena. I have cones all over my pasture.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So like this morning I was practicing on doing some patterns and I used cones to try to motivate him he tends to do better if I have some cones or something like that to motivate him to move forward.
Yeah, because he already knows that he has to do some kind of interaction with that object, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel about teaching him to go around 4 cones? Is it
Well, that's what I would love to do that, because otherwise otherwise it's just exhausting for me. He was in the first 3 years of his life traditionally trained. So he actually does know lunging. He don't want to do it though. He does not know, he does not want to do it. And so like, even though he knows the cues to move forward without me, he doesn't want to. Even if I'm doing it, you know, R plus. I mean, I don't do traditional anymore, but even if I'm doing it R plus, he has no desire to go without me. The best way that I have found to get him to go without, well, I say without me, I have done a form of long reining. It's not exactly long reining because I don't use 2 reins. I have a 14-foot lead rope, and I tell him to go on and I follow along behind him holding that lead rope, which still requires me to walk and trot whenever he walks and trots, but that's been my best way of getting him to sort of like move on. But as far as getting him to, I'm having a hard enough time getting him to give me more than 20 seconds of trot, even if I go with him right now.
So what I
And
want you to understand is that we will start with the really basic, like the forward movement, and the second is to teach him to go around an object.
yes,
Once he
that's what
can do that, then the training will look like this. That's what it
Yep.
will look like. So in the beginning,
So
we will really focus on all the details to get that foundation super strong. And because I can totally get your horse, like if he is traditionally trained to lunge, like they hate it so much. But if you start by teaching him to go around one object, one cone, it doesn't look or remind him at lunging at all.
in his particular case, I actually don't think it was because he was traditionally trained. Actually, it's only been in the last year that this has been a problem. And I really think it's because he has gotten so fat. He's so out of shape. He just doesn't have any endurance. And it's really, to me, telling how he's feeling physically, because a year ago even, he used to be excited and motivated to do all of these things. This has happened in the last year because of where he's at physically.
Okay, so I will. We are actually 20 minutes over time, but yeah, I will invite you to the Facebook group of the Academy. That's where you can share your videos in.
Mm-hmm.
So for Bo, I would suggest just focus on walking until he knows what to do, and then you can build on trot. Once horses know how to get around 4 cones, going to the trot is not hard anymore. But he also needs, I think, getting confidence in that it's fun to move.
Yes, that's what it is. That is absolutely what it is. He is just super resistant. And weirdly enough, actually the hardest thing for me to do is just get him to walk. Once he starts walking, pushing him up into a trot is actually not that hard. Now our endurance with it is not good. But for some reason, whenever I ask him to when we're at a stop and I ask him to walk, it's like he does everything in his power not to move forward that first time, going
Okay,
into that rock.
so for this week, I'll give you two solutions to that. First of all, don't cue him, because your cue is not a cue, because he won't follow up with the behavior you want, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to say walk on or whatever your cue is. Let him offer the behavior. Try to entice him with stationary targets, or maybe the setup that I did with Fionn around the trash can. Then initiate and reinforce all initiative to move. You can also, there's another cool little exercise, I think that would work for Patricia and Kika as well. If you follow your horse, in the beginning they won't offer movement. I have a video of that too, follow the horse. I did that with Kira too. It was super interesting to see what happened. So I had Kira on a lead rope in that particular video, and I waited until she started to move. In the beginning, she was like, "Okay, patience. I'm standing here. I'm standing here. I'm standing here," and I was just grounding myself and just something like I tried to not to cue her to stand. I didn't know what to do, so I just waited. I'm like, there will be a point that she will move to somewhere. That's just what horses do. They don't stand there. A donkey is different, so I don't know if it will work for Patricia. So I waited until she moved, but because I had her on a lead rope, the expectation was to walk. So that's what I set up in the environment to help her come up with an idea. So when she moved, I moved. And then I tried to even walk in sync with her front legs. Her right front leg moved, my right leg moved. Her left, my left. And then when she slowed down and stopped, because she was like, what is going on? I stopped. And I did that a few times and I reinforced that. And it was super fun because that really helped her to initiate movement. And you can even reinforce that with a treat or a click and a treat, whatever feels best. I think that's, if you have, for instance, Patricia, because I know you bring Kika to another pasture at night, is that still?
Yeah.
So whenever you are,
She does go in front of me when because she's eager to get to her supper. So so I'll click and treat that when she does that on the way.
yeah, but if she really blocks you off, I would be careful with reinforcing that.
So what she does, I'm on the end of a lead. She's on the end of the lead rope because, especially going to in the mornings, going into the sand school, because she quite anticipates. Just recently, she's done this. She's anticipating a bit of fun training. So she goes in front of me. I have a lead rope, and I think, wow, she's going in front of me for a few steps. We get in the gate, and then she stops, but she does actually go in front of me. So should I reward that?
Yes, because that's where it starts. You already have that behavior that she walks first through the gate. Start there, reinforce that, because that will give her ideas in the arena as well.
Yeah.
Make a note of how you move. Maybe you already have like this arm movement with the lead rope over the fence or gate, or like be aware of what you're doing, because she knows, but we usually don't know. So those are like movements. I did hand targeting with Fionn, so I knew that if I would do this,
Yeah.
or to point because that's human, but I should have done this, then it would look like hand targeting and it would give him the idea to move towards my hand. So being aware of what behaviors that our horses already do can help us. And it's really important also, if we send a horse away, to try not to move at first. Like let them do like the first initiative and then we can follow. So if we do that consistently, we are not the cue to move anymore, because most often we move first. We move first by also just even forward movement with a weight shift, and then the horse, oh, that's my cue. But when we stand still, that will be super cool that the horse learns to offer movement, because the cones or the trash can, that becomes the cue, that becomes the environmental cue, and then we can put it later on a verbal cue.
Right. Good.
So it's some homework. Make a baseline video. I will put that in the course. I will put the link of the course also in the Facebook group. I will invite Rachel to our Facebook group. Where's my
So is
presentation?
the Facebook group where we're going to find our homework and things like that, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is I will and I will put that in the course content. So make a baseline video of where your horse is at. So just make a video of what you're doing right now. The baseline video, keep it below 5 minutes, because otherwise it just would be boring for yourself to watch back. Write down what your end goal is, how it looked like, and the end goal can be past this 8 week, but it's also good to have something like, okay, in 8 weeks I would really, my dream is to have my horse trot or my donkey trot, or so that we have something to work towards. But you can also say like my dream goal next year is, so take it a little bit further in the future, and then share your goals in the Facebook group and your video. Does everybody know how to upload a video to YouTube and then share the link? Because that works better than uploading it to Facebook.
So you want us to upload the video to YouTube and then put it on the Facebook page?
Yeah, or Vimeo or whatever platform you use.
Right.
And
Yeah. No, I get confused with the YouTube link. I can put it on YouTube, but I never know how to put the link onto Facebook page.
Do you have like a sign in for your YouTube and all of that? You have your own page where you upload your videos?
yeah,
I do. Yeah, I have.
Do you have the app, because it's easier on the app?
Yes.
Okay, so when I go into all of the videos that I've uploaded, there's like 3 little dots, and you press those 3 little dots and it gives you an option for sharing. And then once you press the option to share, then you can say copy link. And then whenever you go into the Facebook page, you just hold your finger down and you paste it.